Chapter 13. The Boy Who Knew Too Much. Kindergarten was a battlefield, and Ethan had not braced for it. He had spent years managing 2 parents and a handful of familiar adults, all of whom loved him and saw what they expected to see. Kindergarten was different. Kindergarten was 30 hours a week under the gaze of strangers, a teacher trained to watch children, and 20 other children whose ordinariness was a constant, merciless baseline against which any wrongness in Ethan would show. For the first time since his rebirth, he was on display, all day, with no crib to retreat to and no nap to hide in. He had thought he was good at the performance by now. He learned fast that he was not as good as he needed to be. The danger had a name, and the name was Ms. Aldridge. She was the teacher, a small, gray, unhurried woman who had watched children for 30 years, and who possessed the one quality Ethan feared most in an adult. She actually paid attention. Most grown-ups looked at children through a fog of assumption, seeing the category and not the child. Ms. Aldridge looked at the child. And after only a few weeks, Ethan began to catch her looking at him, not unkindly, not suspiciously, but with a small, steady, thoughtful attention that made the cold river in him go very quiet and very careful. She had noticed things. He could see the noticing accumulate behind her calm eyes. The boy who read too well and hid it badly. The boy who asked a simple question, sometimes paused half a beat too long, as though translating from some other language before he answered. The boy who watched the other children play with the patient, faintly removed interest of an adult at a park, instead of flinging himself into the play the way 5-year-olds do. The boy who once, when another child fell and split his lip, had not cried or frozen or run for the teacher like the others, but had moved, calm, quick, competent, to press a sleeve to the bleeding before he caught himself, and remembered to be a child about it. None of it was proof of anything. There was nothing to prove. There was no category in Ms. Aldridge's 30 years for what Ethan actually was. But she had the scent of something, and Ethan knew with a cold certainty that a woman like this, given enough small strange moments, would slowly assemble them into a shape, and would, being conscientious, mention the shape to someone. A counselor. A specialist. His parents. Your son is unusual. I think he should be looked at. He could not allow the shape to form. So Ethan did the hardest thing he had done since the day of the teapot. He made himself dull. It went against every instinct the man inside the boy owned. He had spent 44 years being overlooked and underestimated, and some bitter, starved part of him had quietly enjoyed these last years, the warmth of being the bright one, the clever one, the boy whose father thought he'd want the whole sky. To deliberately put that away, to sabotage his own shine, to give wrong answers on purpose, to fumble the reading he could do in his sleep, to fling himself into the children's games with a forced, gulping, performed abandon, was a small daily humiliation and a grief, and he hated it. He did it anyway. Grain by grain in reverse, where he had built a self that was bright but believable, he now sanded the brightness down, made Ethan Cole a degree more ordinary every week, until the boy Ms. Aldridge watched was no longer a small strange puzzle, but just a quiet, sweet, slightly dreamy kid who was good with his letters and a little behind on his shoelaces, and entirely, comfortingly within the category. He let the competent thing slip away. He let himself be a child who ran for the teacher when someone bled, He let his answers come quick and simple and a little wrong. He buried the man so deep that even the watcher could not find him. And it worked. He watched the thoughtful attention behind Ms. Aldridge's eyes slowly ease, the accumulating shape come apart for one of new pieces, the small strange puzzle resolve into a familiar, unremarkable child. By winter, she had stopped looking at him in that particular way. He had become invisible again, not by being unseen, but by being seen and dismissed, which Ethan was coming to understand was the deepest invisibility there was. But he did not forget her, and he did not let himself feel safe. Lying in bed that night, the ember banked warm in his chest, Ethan turned the lesson of Ms. Aldridge over carefully, because it was a large one and he meant to keep it. She had been only a kindergarten teacher, kind, ordinary, armed with nothing but 30 years of attention. And she had very nearly seen him. Not the truth, never the truth, but the wrongness, the edge of the shape, enough to point others toward him. If a gray little woman with a class of 20 could come that close, then what about the years ahead? What about the harder eyes that the map promised? The world of the awakened he knew, dimly, was out there, hidden, watching for exactly the kind of anomaly that Ethan Cole was. What about whatever it was that had set again in the cold place without stars, and might, for all he knew, still be looking? The thought put a chill in him that the warm ember could not reach. He had been thinking of his secret as a thing to keep from doctors and neighbors, a domestic problem of credibility. Ms. Aldridge taught him to think bigger. The wrongness in him was not just unusual. It was, to the right watcher, a signal, a flare sent up in a dark forest. And the better he got, the more he grew, the more power he gathered in his chest year by year, the brighter that flare would burn. The very strength he needed to survive the tide would, if he was careless, be the thing that gave him away to whatever hunted anomalies in the dark. Grow strong, he told himself, and grow quiet. Both at once. Always both at once. The day you forget to hide is the day someone finds you. He set the lesson with all the others, deep in the cold and careful place. And then, because the work did not stop for fear, he emptied himself, went still, and reached down once more into the dark behind his breath, to grow, very quietly, a little stronger before morning.